beyond the launching pad. This is a lesson the quiet city of Henderson, Nevada would learn when disaster strikes their peaceful community. May 4th, 1988, 15 miles outside of Henderson, the Pacific Engineering and Production Company, or PEPCON, burns out of control.
My God!
That's intense. I've never seen such
There's an explosion over there. I hope nobody gets hurt.
The product PEPCON manufactures? Ammonium perchlorate, a crucial ingredient in rocket fuel. Television engineer Dennis Todd videotapes the blaze from nearby Black Mountain.
The crew and I were on the mountain doing routine maintenance on a television tower. Looking at it, the brilliance of the fire was something like I'd never seen before.
Look at that flame spread, will you?
Rodney McCarroll also watches the growing inferno from a neighboring building.
My plant was about 1,200 yards from where PEPCON was at. We could see people that were scrambling and fire hoses breaking out, and we saw that they were trying to fight this fire.
Inside the factory, PEPCON employee Roy Westerfield realizes the true magnitude of the emergency and calls 911.
Fire department? Emergency. We need the fire department. All you can get here immediately. What's the problem? Oh, we've got everything's on fire.
Close to 1,000 rescuers respond to the call, including Larry Sullivan.
I knew what was in there. I know they store a lot of fuel there. And in fact, this day, there was approximately, from what I hear, 9 million pounds of this stuff stored there in plastic drums.
Before Sullivan and the other firefighters can make their way to PEPCON, the chemicals, exposed to intense heat, finally reach the point of combustion.
Ooh, that's going to be loud.
The magnitude of that sound when it reached us was still extremely large for something that had traveled over a mile.
You can't tell me people got out of that.
Oh, no. There's got to be hundreds. Hey, you got that?
But the destruction has only just begun. Minutes later, 2 smaller explosions rip through the desert.
Oh, there's another one. Well, they had all that fuel stored up. And then another one.
You could see people actually literally running through the desert, trying to just get away from PEPCON.
4 minutes after the initial blast, the 4th and largest explosion erupts from the factory. The explosion is so intense, the shockwave vaporizes a nearby factory and registers 3.5 on the Richter scale.
It was just like a wall of water coming at you. And I remember it literally picking me up off my feet and never touching the ground. I mean, it literally picked me up and threw me at least 40 feet.
We are back with more of our coverage of the explosion at Pacific Engineering just shortly before noon today.
By now, news of the PEPCON disaster has spread throughout Nevada.
Yeah, we saw people walking across the desert like zombies.
But the city of Henderson has already started rallying together to help their friends and neighbors. Sullivan and other firefighters tend to the injured in the immediate area of the blast. McCarroll uses his own vehicle to transport wounded to the hospital. There, he finds hundreds of other Henderson citizens seeking medical aid.
At first, I thought it was from PEPCON, but it's not. It was from the flying glass that went through the community.
As the city slowly gains control over the disaster, the priority becomes finding loved ones not seen since before the explosion.
You wonder where your wife is at that moment, whether she was, somewhere that could have gotten hurt, or where your kids are.
A very good friend of mine that called me and he goes, "Rod, I have your family. They're safe. They're okay. I bawled like a baby.
An estimated 7,000 homes and businesses, some more than 2 miles away, suffered damage from the blast. Incredibly, despite the magnitude of the destruction, only 2 lives are lost. One of the victims is Roy Westerfield, the man who first contacted 911. Westerfield suffered from polio and undoubtedly knew that he couldn't escape from the factory in time, so he stayed behind to make the emergency call, and in the process, saved numerous lives.
We just had a big explosion and everything.
Roy couldn't walk very fast, and he may have thought that he would have held people back from getting out of the building. He felt that they were practically family to him, and I think he was wanting to protect them and get them out of the building.
More than a decade later, it's difficult to find visible signs of the disaster. Even Pacific Engineering has relocated to a different state. But the memories run deep in Henderson, and its citizens cannot easily forget the moment that changed their lives forever.
I thank God how lucky we were that day. You can't believe how lucky we were that day.
My family's always been close, but I think we grew a lot closer to one another at that moment. That day brought a lot of things into perspective for a lot of us.